So, our students are required to write constructed responses where they cite text evidence. And many people are familiar with the RACE strategy: restate, answer, cite, and explain. I use that as well, but I have tweaked it in a way that helps all levels of learners. So, stick around and I'll show you what I do. Hi, I'm Robin Mellum, children's book author with HarperCollins and Disney Hyperion. I'm also a middle school teacher. I teach writing. I've created a writer's workshop program that's student led, highly engaging, has all these components to it to help your kids become more confident, to have more stamina. The teachers who've been using it so far are reporting back amazing results. I'm so excited to hear about all the progress that's been made this year. So I want to keep sharing everything I possibly can with you. One of the things that we have to do during the year is constructed responses. So in addition to all, I mean, it's like this whole plethora of stuff that we have to do, right? It's like this giant symphony. And the constructed responses can be really difficult for some of them because you'll often hear back like, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. They just get super stuck. So the RACE strategy came out, the RACE, and it's fantastic for giving them structure, some sentence frames to start building out their thoughts. And I work really hard at the beginning of the year of getting everybody on board with that, the restate, answer, cite, and explain. The way I change it up a little bit, though, is I take the R and the A and I combine them into one cell because the restating and answering, it actually makes more sense when it's all in one sentence. So I'll show you how I redid that. And then I bump it up to the next level. I call it leveled up for those who want to go beyond that. And I add in an H, but it's to the front of it. So it's an H race. So we call it a horse race. And then if you ever want to use that, there's a video clip of that Rich, oh gosh, something Rich, the horse that won the, I don't know, I'm talking about things I don't know about. But anyway, it's just kind of funny to do little clips of horse races. Just get them excited. I'm going to show you how my students started out with the race strategy and then how some of them added on to it with this horse race and how their writing is starting to become more sophisticated and deeper. And that's the goal. Not everybody's going to be at the same place at once, but if you have that beginning structure, then you can start folding in all these other different ways to elaborate. Now, I like to do like instead of going from a race response, which can actually just be 3 sentences, to then a big essay, how do you go from there and in between? Because that's a huge jump. So, in that, I teach them how to write an introduction virtually to anything. If you're doing like academic writing, which is called a HIT introduction, I'm going to show you that one too: hook, introduce, and thesis. And I have some rules with it that will really help them focus in on what goes in each one of those. And so if you take those two, if they can understand the race and they can understand the hit, then you can start combining them in different ways to make different levels of writing and different lengths of writing. So after we do the race, when I move into where you're comparing two things, like let's suppose you read two articles, that's something they have to do is compare to what's similar, what's different, analyze it. And I have a certain way that I teach them how to compare two articles, and it has to do with an elevator. And I'll show you on my screen what that's about, but visuals are really, really helpful for them, as you know. And then when they get to work with those two articles, compare them, they stretch that into maybe 3 to 4 paragraphs. Then I move into fun size essays where you get the basics down of the essay. Because if they don't have something to work with, they don't have anything to work with. So it's super important to get the base down, and then you can kind of start layering in from there. In another video, I'm going to go into a lot more about how I take a fun size essay and get them to elaborate it into a more sophisticated type of essay. But right now, I do want to show you how I take the race strategy, change it into a horse race, add in the hit introduction, and then make them all kind of blend in together. So I'll show you on my screen. So here's how I teach the race strategy. I start with the standard, and then I put in a question. These are sort of generic slides that I have for any type of question. I'll add in the question here and then give them their graphic organizer. And it looks like this. And I've taken the R and the A, restate and answer, and I merged these cells over here so that it's just one sentence. Then they cite their evidence, quoting from it, and then explain why did they pick that. And this can basically be done in 3 sentences, but I give them two choices. They can either fill out that one or they could choose this one, H race, horse race. So they add a hook to it and then restate, answer, cite, and explain. But the important part is to make sure that they have an example. So in this one, I have Aesop's fable, The Boy Cried Wolf. I put a question in there, and they're going to see how there's two different answers you could give here. This one is the first basic race answer where they answered actually in 3 sentences. It's a really good answer. But I want them to see how they could elaborate on it. And then we look at the horse race answer and I ask them, what do you notice? What's going on here? How is this more sophisticated? What is added? And they try and go through it and oh, okay, well, there's a hook. And notice how they didn't say anything about Aesop. They didn't mention the article or anything. It's just a really bold statement that is connected to the emotions or feelings that are part of their analysis. And in this one, it also includes the author's name, the title of the article. They might point out that the end here wraps up and it connects back up to the hook. So trying to have them figure out why is this a more sophisticated answer. Now, next, you might want to work on comparing two things. This is what I was talking about with the elevator pitch. If they're comparing two, they want to find the main idea and the supporting details. So I tell them that main idea is sort of like an elevator pitch, which we know about as adults or as authors. We talk about it a lot when we're pitching our work. We don't use it enough with kids, I think. It's really helpful for them to and visualize that if you were at a hotel and you got into an elevator and there was someone on there and they said, "Hey, did you read that article called such and such?" And you said, "Yeah." "Well, what was it about?" And you have from that time, from when the elevator goes down to the lobby, that's all the time you have to explain what the article is about. And that is the main idea. Then you get to the lobby and this person's like, "Tell me more." That's where you're citing evidence. You're giving all the details. So that's lobby talk. And then they can move into comparing these two articles in 10 sentences. And sometimes when they're overwhelmed, I might say, "Do you want to write an essay or would you rather just write 10 sentences?" And they'll say 10 sentences, which actually is, they could totally do an essay in 10 sentences. So that's kind of the medium version of an essay. Then I move on to fun size essays. So this is an example of an informative essay we were working on. So I get them kind of hooked here. Of course, Minecraft gets everybody hooked into it. And we talk a lot about hit introductions. I'm super big on this. So the hook, introduction, thesis. And I have a whole bunch of lessons on a hook. It's like one of the most important things that you could teach them over and over and over because it comes up in every type of writing. And this will give them confidence. They know how to start their writing, they can get going. So practice hooks in lots of fun, different ways. So there's the hook. Then they introduce it like they're a newspaper reporter. And then their thesis that gives the reader 2 or 3 facts that they're going to be talking about in this essay. Now, from there, and I'm gonna make you a little dizzy here, so maybe I'm gonna scroll down. I'm kind of I might show them these parts, but basically what we do is we deconstruct an essay before they ever write anything. And I give them an example one with all these labels here, and I put this up in the strips and they work in groups. We have to put the essay back together again. And then we have a great discussion about what is the hook? How is it connected to the conclusion and all these different parts of it. So then I would do that over and over. I would have them deconstruct an essay the next day and the next day, and they'll put it up on the wall so that they can see this all the time. So here's one more. I did this one on narrative essays, how they could do it in 6 steps. So if you can get them getting like the basics down, right? So that you have something to work with. Then you can go deeper. Then you can show them how to elaborate and how to layer in more. And in my next video, that's what I'm going to talk about is revision. How do they get this hunk of clay, this thing that they're going to work with to make this big piece of art? How do they get that down? And then what are some strategies you can use to get them to revise efficiently and in the best way possible? So Stick around. I'll be talking about that next. And I'll have some links below for you for all of these different types of resources that I've created. I also have links to a free copy of the introduction to my ebook that explains how I use essays in blocks of time compared to writer's workshop. All right. Thanks for watching, and I hope that helped.